È bello avere quello che ti serve quando ti serve. Con EasyBank, la banca digitale di Intesa San Paolo.
Per lavoro non mi separo mai dal mio telefono, tranne quando devo prepararmi per una trasmissione importante. E quando guido. In macchina occhi fissi sulla strada e non sul telefono. Perché la strada è il filo che ci lega a ciò che amiamo. Buongiorno a tutti, siete pronti per una diretta? Io sì, e restiamo qui.
Se stai cercando vicinanza, solidità, trasparenza, sono qui il Medio Credito Centrale, una banca a capitale pubblico, una banca per le imprese che offre finanziamenti e gestisce agevolazioni. Qui è il posto per te. Medio Credito Centrale, qui l'impresa ha più valore.
vi imploro, con umiltà e con fiducia, permettete a Cristo di parlare all'uomo.
Don Gius aveva capito il problema che avevo. Se la tua vocazione è vero, il tuo lavoro verrà fuori anche dai sassi.
comunicare la fede agli altri, ma veramente insieme a loro riscoprire che cos'è la fede, che cos'è la fede per me. Portare Cristo agli altri, comunicarlo agli altri è l'unico modo che abbiamo per conoscerlo veramente.
L'iter communionis aiuta a comunicare all'esterno la ricchezza di vita, di giudizi, di tentativi, di opere che nascono dalle persone e dalle comunità. L'iter communionis è proprio la vita del movimento. Scrivete all'iter communionis le vostre esperienze, ci fate bene. Si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia?
Avere quello che ti serve quando ti serve. Con EasyBank, la banca digitale di Intesa San Paolo.
Per lavoro non mi separo mai dal mio telefono, tranne quando devo prepararmi per una trasmissione importante. E quando guido. In macchina occhi fissi sulla strada e non sul telefono. Perché la strada è il filo che ci lega a ciò che amiamo. Buongiorno a tutti, siete pronti per una diretta? Io sì, e restiamo qui.
Se stai cercando vicinanza, solidità, trasparenza, sono qui, il Medio Credito Centrale, una banca a capitale pubblico, una banca per le imprese che offre finanziamenti e gestisce agevolazioni. Qui è il posto per te. Medio Credito Centrale, qui l'impresa ha più valore.
Vi prego, vi imploro, con umiltà e con fiducia, permettete a Cristo di parlare all'uomo.
Don Gius aveva capito il problema che avevo. Se la tua vocazione è vero, il tuo lavoro verrà fuori anche dai sassi.
Di comunicare la fede agli altri, ma veramente insieme a loro riscoprire che cos'è la fede, che cos'è la fede per me. Portare Cristo agli altri, comunicarlo agli altri è l'unico modo che abbiamo per conoscerlo veramente.
L'Iter Communionis aiuta a comunicare all'esterno la ricchezza di vita, di giudizi, di tentativi, di opere che nascono dalle persone e dalle comunità. L'Iter Communionis è proprio la vita del movimento. Scrivete all'Iter Communionis le vostre esperienze, ci fate bene. Si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia? Chi dice che io sia? E voi chi dite che io sia? E allora si è voltato improvvisamente alla gente che era lì e ha detto: la gente che cosa dice che io sia?
È bello avere quello che ti serve quando ti serve. Con EasyBank, la banca digitale di Intesa San Paolo.
Per lavoro non mi separo mai dal mio telefono, tranne quando devo prepararmi per una trasmissione importante. E quando guido. In macchina occhi fissi sulla strada e non sul telefono. Perché la strada è il filo che ci lega a ciò che amiamo. Buongiorno a tutti, siete pronti per una diretta? Io sì, e restiamo qui.
Civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Sì, buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning everyone, and thank you for being here
Che ha un tema importante.
to this meeting that has a very important theme for the future of our country. Yesterday, we listened to the words of the governor of Banca d'Italia, who talked about the different aspects of the Italian social and economic situation. He talked about the European crisis in terms of growth, the increase in protectionism for an economy like the Italian one. This is a negative element, and there are consequences that can wait upon our enterprises. But he also talked about the strong points that our country has with a growth that could be bigger than that of France and Germany. And for instance, in terms of experts, we have a positive trend at the moment. And we all wonder what we can count upon in order to have a positive trend. So the Made in Italy is one of our best assets because it makes us very strong on international markets, and it is also a very important connection of the different components of our economy. So there are so many resources that need to be safeguarded, protected, also for safety reasons, because safety has now become the second phase, so to speak, of our economy. There are situations we need to face that need to be taken into account. There are two wars underway at the moment, and they, well, probably won't end in the nearest future. There are some political unknown facts. President of the United States is still to be voted, and this will have obviously great repercussions on the geopolitical as well as the economic scenario. So also what our government will do, what our enterprises will be able to do. So this is extremely important. And this is where this important economic element is placed, the Made in Italy products. So this is what we are talking about today. And we have very distinguished guests in terms of the analysis that has to be carried out. And they represent the enterprises of the production sector. So I don't want to take up too much time, and I will introduce now the president of ISTAT, Francesco Maria Chelli, and I'll ask him what is the situation we're living in, what are the data we have, what is the situation, what are the perspectives on which we can base our decisions. Thank you, and thanks to the meeting organization that gives me the opportunity to talk today and speak about some data, giving an overview of the situation And we start with the recent data concerning foreign trade. So
curve che sono rossa.
You see the two lines, the red one and the green one. We have the export trend, which is quite stable. And then we have a decrease in imports. You see the values, the figures that are the most recent, the latest data, and they concern the last 6 months of the first 6 months of 2024. So we have in the first quarter minus 7.4% in terms of imports and an increase in exports. So the balance of payments is actually at a positive situation. So in terms of exports, as you see on the graph, most of our exports are towards countries outside the EU. So inside the EU, we have a decrease by minus 2.8%. And this curve shows us something more. We move from values to volumes. So we have look at these values without inflation, and this gives us an overview of our exports. Owing to inflation, our volumes are a little bit lower than in the past, 2.8% for the export and 3.6% for imports. And this, well, especially with reference to the EU area. So if we now see a breakdown for according to regions, you can see that the south of the country is stable, but we need to make a difference because the two big islands have registered a decrease by 19%, whereas the southern of Italy has an increase of 16.9%. In the first half of 2024, this is the only positive element we have, whereas the worst situation is that of central Italy. So the obstacles to exports and the problem of trust. Well, it is true that the latest newsletter has registered a decrease in the trust of enterprises, but in the manufacturing sector, which is fundamental for exports, this index goes up with reference to the previous month. In the first quarter of 2024, and we'll have the next data very soon, the companies, the enterprises have declared that they have problems in exporting. And so there is a decrease in exports. And in general, the trend, however, is positive. This slide shows that this phenomenon is in a way limited. Let's take a look at the share on the total export in the manufacturing sector. 37% of the whole sector is made up of 482 enterprises who have over 500 employees. So this is a very concentrated phenomenon, so to speak. Another interesting data, the big enterprises that are the 2.2% with more than 550 employees, they cover 53% of the whole sector. 33% of the whole sector, sorry. So the export increases with the the increase of the size of the enterprise, of the company. So we have now other data on the manufacturing sector again, that covers the majority of our exports. And here we can see the different kinds of enterprises, the national groups, the multinational groups with Italian control, and the mixed international groups. So if you see the Italian and the foreign groups, both in exports and exports, their contribution, the contribution of multinational groups is the majority, the role of these groups. Here we talk about the traditional made in Italy textile, clothing and food. The share of exports for these enterprises is above the average in all the sectors. That means that the traditional made in Italy products or sector is more prone to exports. Obviously, Made in Italy is based on a promise of beauty, style, elegance, tradition. But this is a promise that has to be kept over the time. So there is a very interesting book by Gianluca Gregori that talks about virtuous heirs. And we have inherited this reality of the made in Italy, and then, well, we have to keep this promise, the promise of the made in Italy. So I wanted just to show this other slide to see how multinational groups are present all over Italy, the south, the north, and the center, as well as on the islands. On the left, you see multinationals that are controlled by foreign groups. On the other side, we have the others. But if we take a look at the blue spots, these are the local systems. The data are very specific. These multinationals contribute for over 40% to the local work. So this is an analysis that helps us understand the situation. Here you see a comparison between our economy and the major European economies, but I just wanted to show you the two green columns. We have goods, the light green, and services, the dark green. The difference between us and the other European countries, we have Spain, Germany, and France here on the graph, that are they are our major partners in Italy. And you see the difference, a low percentage in terms of services, whereas there is a good trend as far as goods are concerned. So this is one of the main issues, critical issues for our experts. The small square show the variation, and the white square for Italy is quite big, whereas for the other it is smaller. So if you take a look at the graph on the right, you'll see that we are very close to the situation in Germany. So Germany's weakness is reflected in our economy, because Germany is our main partner. When the German economy slows down, this obviously has repercussions on our economy. And as you can see, Italy is very strong as far as agricultural and food products are concerned. In terms of exports, we have an increase in comparison with other countries. I don't have the time to show this graph, but anyway, this talk is a graph that concerns the breaking down of the different sectors. There are some sectors that have some difficulties. I'm sorry, but I have to stop here and have much time left. Thank you for your attention.
Grazie al Presidente Chelli perché...
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the nice overview you've given us and for what you showed. I mean, you mentioned both the positive aspects and the criticalities, the problems we have to face.
Chiederei al...
I'd now like to ask the President of Compagnia delle Opere, Andrea Dellabianca, for his remarks. Actually, he and Compagnia delle Opere represent another side of companies. I mean, they are profit-making companies, but especially the ones that refer to Compagnia delle Opere provide services of training and education, and that's one of the most important aspects that are normally referred to when one thinks about future prospects and the strengthening of Made in Italy. So we know that our companies are very small, maybe too small, and there are issues related to competitiveness and productivity. And this also relates to their ability of providing services. That's one of the things we miss if we are to improve. So how do you face these problems in your work, and what would you ask to decision makers? What would you ask decision makers in this respect? Thank you very much. As you rightly pointed out, inside Compagnia delle Opere, we have both profit-making companies, we have social enterprises and educational, so enterprises providing educational services. The interaction between these organizations has always been an element of growth for us.
Trasferisce il valore dell'organizzazione dalle imprese profit alle no profit.
Because this interaction allows us to guarantee an exchange of value between the three types of entities. This interaction is present all over, and it also enables bigger enterprises to relate and to come into touch with smaller enterprises. As you pointed out, all aspects are very important. Education is very important, and this goes hand in hand with the reform of technical higher education institutes. So there is a relationship which is particularly important between the service provision world, the service providers, and the educational institutions. This leads to a positive relationship that in a way enables us to highlight the importance of some productive activities to young people who are currently in education. It also provides indications to the professional world because it basically tells them what the actual needs of the educational institutions need. And it also gives an idea of the fact that education is something that pertains the tasks of educational institutions, but it has to be carried out by companies as well. So there are important collaborations between those who work in the field of labor, and this basically relates to the relationship between the school, the educational sector, and the professional world, and that has an impact also on production chains. The relationship between small and big enterprises is also important. Small enterprises sometimes are small because of their inability to grow, but also because of their production. And this, their relationship with bigger companies makes it possible for them to better react to the needs of the market. And this brings about an advantage to bigger companies. Bigger companies are better organized in terms of their organizational and economic capacity. And this is something that becomes very, very difficult for smaller companies. So this is a positive relationship, and those who are part of this relationship can contribute positively to the trend. In other words, sponsoring, promoting these interactions between various worlds, various, in a way, entities, do provide a value within our production chain. If there are these interactions, you can have increases, and you can be better present in foreign markets. So these interactions have to deal with the development and the sustainability of companies. There is also an issue related to technological change today. Technological change has to be thoroughly understood. And this relationship, the relationship with bigger companies, is fundamental, especially for smaller companies, because this requires knowledge and skills that can be promoted only through a positive interaction between bigger companies and smaller companies. This brings about also a different social impact. Bigger companies will be forced to address ESG-related issues in order to have fruitful relations with banks or with institutions, and in turn, this will have repercussions on the smaller companies working in the production chain with bigger companies. In turn, this triggers yet another relationship. So the focus is on organizational capacity as well as the relationship with the world of social enterprises. And it is here that our responsibility lies. Over the years, this has been an element of wealth, of prosperity for us, because we've strongly believed in its content. And today it is even more so, because we're called upon to, in a way, narrate this ability and corroborate it with data. This requires collaboration on the part of social enterprises, which have to provide useful indicators to describe their work, and also small and medium-sized enterprises to describe their contents and their budget. This is mandatory. It's a must. The approach to our economic system will be very much, in a way, governed by this. And this already shows how the relationships between companies of various sizes and with various organizations becomes an element of cohesion that today has to go beyond the mere exchange of goods and services. It is something that needs to establish long-lasting relations that enables the transfer of social values, competencies, market vision, ability to manage new technologies, as well as the relational changes that take place within companies. Companies also made a huge effort during the pandemic to invest in new technologies. They also changed their contracts, and they changed their relationship with their employees to, meet the needs of that moment. These changes did not impact on productivity, and therefore this investment has to be supported by the whole system. We're facing technological change that becomes an occasion to understand the situation. And then another important aspect is the relationship with institutions, which for us becomes fundamental to transfer these competencies and skills, so that institutions can help companies identify the value of positive production chains and the value of systems which are based on on a relationship that enables to draft useful proposals to institutions.
Volevo farle una piccola...
I would like to add something to what you said about cohesion factors. We have talked about two possibilities, the integration of immigrants and the participation of workers to the governance of the enterprise and the enterprise's capital. So these are two factors that could be a positive solution according to you? Yes, actually, these are two elements that are already a reality, especially in some areas. The need of manpower in some enterprises makes it necessary to try and include in a training path and in a social inclusion effort those who come, or rather those who are the children of foreign citizens. So this could be a very interesting opportunity. And we think that accompanying these people and helping them to be included into society is something we're already doing. I don't want to say anything to preempt what Dr. Sbarra is going to say, but anyway, for small enterprises, the entrepreneur, in a way, is a colleague for his staff, his workers, and the staff often gives indications, suggestions, and participates in the enterprise's success. So this is something that is real already today. To make this standard, to make it a cause for a further development of the situation is something positive. And we have actually supported the proposal of trade union associations in order to develop, to foster this dialogue so that we can change our initiatives according to the characteristics of our country. Thank you. Then a different point of view, which is extremely important, is that of Maria Porro, president of the Salone del Mobile. When we talk about made in Italy, furniture and internal design, indoor design, is obviously one of the most important elements. But this sector has registered a lot of success, but there are a few worries for the future. The Chinese market is cause of worry. The geopolitical tensions that don't help enterprises that export a lot of their products. A few data that the president of Salone del Mobile gave me, the volume is over 52 billions, and it is based on quality, on supply chains that are developed in our country, that have roots in our countries, but needs to be, so to speak, strengthened, to be protected and safeguarded. So after that, we will give the word to the minister. But now I'm asking the president of Salone del Mobile, what are the measures that you envisage for the future? And what is the result of some initiatives in terms of professional training and education, and because there is this problem in this sector that there is not a sufficient initiative in terms of technical education and training. Thank you. Yes, over 52 billion euros, and 56% of the production is exported. So we are really voted to exports. It is a manufacturing and creative sector. The creative part is carried out in Italy, but also the manufacturing part is carried out on our national territory. Only 10% of the enterprises of the sector produce abroad. So it is really made in Italy, and this because we have a very strong and deeply rooted tradition, and we have always managed to conquer wider markets. So the Salone del Mobile has always been has always played a pivotal role in this sense, because it is central to the whole system, and in order to be competitive, we also need to cooperate. So the main challenges are due to this competitiveness now. We are no longer as competitive as we used to be. Our sector has always registered a very good performance, including during the pandemic and after the pandemic, because people spent a lot of time at home. So furniture became something important. Now the sector is slowing down. This was something we were actually expecting in terms of volumes. Anyway, we are still above the figures of 2019. So the Salone del Mobile, after the pandemic in these 4 years, could, so to speak, build a new trust to this very big fair. This year we had 370,000 visitors. So it is a plus 28% in terms of professionals of the sector. So we talk about figures, we talk about quantities, but we also have to talk about quality. So competitiveness and the erosion of the competitiveness of our enterprises should not jeopardize the quality of our production. So there is, it is difficult to find skilled workers, and in a way, we try to steal skilled workers from one enterprise to the other. Maybe we couldn't manage to explain to young people how this sector can give great opportunities in terms of employment. Then our production sites, thanks to Industry 4.0, have changed dramatically, and this tool, if it is used in the right way, could actually solve this competitiveness problem. In particular, I'm referring to the Industry 5.0 tool. It is a sector that exports over 50% of its production towards France, towards Germany. That are the two main markets that are experiencing a crisis at the moment. So it is very, very important for us to find new outlets for our production. So the Salone del Mobile and the institutions for trade in the world play an important role. The Chinese market is experiencing a very difficult crisis at the moment, but it is still a very important outlet. So in November, we have organized a big event in Shanghai to relaunch the Made in Italy in China. And then there are other interesting markets, as for instance, India and it's not easy to find trustworthy partners and to build solid partnerships, because this sector and our products call for specific characteristics and skills in terms of production. So the graph we were looking at before between products and services, goods and services, well, we shouldn't export products alone. We should also provide services, design, assembling, and here we need the support of institutions in reducing bureaucracy that could be extremely useful for us. And we talked about sustainability, social sustainability, environmental sustainability, and this has to become a source of competitiveness for our enterprise and not a limit. And here the European scene, it is extremely important. There is a trend towards the circular economy that can be recycled, but we produce something that is made to last for a long time. So this is what we do when we produce our products. So it's not easy to recycle them. So they do not fit very well in this circular economy idea, even though we do use recycled materials, as for instance recycled timber and the geopolitical situation, the elections in the United States, they make the situation very uncertain. Sometimes we are asked to have some certifications, and we are in a sector with 66 enterprises for a volume of 52 billion euros. You will see this means that the enterprises are small enterprises, and it is difficult for them to get these certifications. It is difficult for them to export their products. So some federation, association, as Arredo, Federlegno, they can play a very important role, but we also need to have a support from the political decision-making part. So this is extremely important. We are already working at organizing the fair for next year. There will be a promotional tour abroad in those markets that are particularly important: the United States, India, the Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, because we need to make Milan the center of the made in Italy of the sector, and this is extremely important. So the dialogue between enterprises and institutions should improve competitiveness and overcome critical issues, so we can actually face this transition. Thank you.
Luigi Sbarra is the General Secretary of the Italian trade union Cisl. I'd like to ask you questions concerning two of the three elements that have already been brought to our attention. First of all, there's an issue: competitiveness. When one talks about competitiveness, many things are normally referred to. One of them is the cost of labor. So companies deciding to bring their productions to places where the cost of labor is lower, or to subcontract certain parts of their production that, in a way, create competitive production chains whose only aim is to limit the cost of labor. So this issue of competitiveness is a first question I would like to ask you about. How do we face competitiveness, especially at a time in which Italy probably needs higher wages rather than lower ones? Then there's a second topic, a second issue, which refers to the following: how can workers be active players in the governance of companies, of their companies, in ways that have to be decided upon? And this is needed, in my view, in order to avoid many of the things that we've already seen. There is a hot debate concerning what happened with Stellantis, former Fiat, when it comes to decisions that are gradually bringing this important company for our country away from our country. So how is the trade union working in this respect? What is it doing to face the topic of competitiveness? Should we focus on different tools? And then second, how do we fight against situations like situations when you have major companies that opt for strategies that eventually lead to the impoverishment of companies and its workers? Well, how long is my time? Well, just a couple of minutes. I'll try and be as quick as possible and to be in line with this event. I think that one of the factors that helps a national community or a system to better face competitiveness is to lever on investments. Italy has lagged behind, very much behind, compared to this brightless competitiveness, precisely because over the last 25 years, Italy has renounced to grow and to invest. It has renounced to, in a way, help productivity grow, to invest in innovation, and also because it sacrificed trade union relationships, industrial relationships. I think this is what we live today is basically the consequence of all of these aspects that have led to a very low and negative situation for our employees. We need to continue investing, to start investing again, to invest in tangible and intangible assets. I believe that the NRRP is a fantastic opportunity that we cannot afford to lose. I think that we have Minister Urso, who is helping us rebuild a new vision of industrial vision. This is something that we've been lacking for a while. There are whole supply chains, whole factors that have, in a way, were dismantled because there was a lack of vision, a lack of public vision in these actors. Everything was left in the hands of the financial sector. Everything has been left in the hands of ill-governed globalization. And the quality and the dignity of labor as well as the stability of companies have been set aside. There was a big mistake. It was a major mistake. So we have to rethink a new social model for growth and development. This means that we need to work again on industrial policies. So as we talk about Made in Italy, we should promote this national health. I was reading that the Made in Italy is capable of generating 420 billion euros every year in the world. And this, especially in the manufacturing sector, the prospect is to increase this, the corresponding percentage even further. There's nearly 3 million workers working in this sector, and there are supply chains and production chains which export top quality, top-notch productions. And so we need to be able to defend them and consolidate these productions, even vis-à-vis possible risks, for example, protectionism or Italian-sounding phenomena that sometimes create difficulties. So the competitiveness of our system has to be supported by a very important factor, which is related to growth, to the relaunch of public and private investments. I don't think that this issue of the cost of labor is not at all an element of disadvantage, especially because this government and previous governments have injected a lot of resources. They've had lots of money be flown to this aspect through incentives and support to companies. And this has been done through the debt taxation and reduction of social security benefits for companies that hire people with indefinite contracts. So this topic of the high cost of labor is, in my view, a fake problem. But rather, we should rather think about how we can reduce taxes on the incomes of employees or pensioners of retired people. as well as those companies that invest in research and innovation, that guarantee the application of contracts which are most representative, that invest in health and safety at work. I think there's a need to address these topics today, and the need is to create a whole new vision of industrial policy. We're discussing this with Minister Urso. We have opened sector-specific working groups at the ministry on, for example, in the iron and steel sector, in the car sector, in the textile sector, in the pharmaceutical field, in the field of telecommunications or electronics. So we are trying to solve corporate crisis. Some years ago, I remember we had about 120 cases of companies that were left there unattended, and today there's 50. So there's 32 and 23 that are currently being monitored. We are also solving major crises. For example, one of them is Marelli, or the Varsila, the crisis of the company Varsila in Trieste, or even the idea to industrialize an area that was previously owned by a Fiat plant in Termini Imerese, or we solved the issue of Whirlpool in Naples. So these are good things. Then, of course, there's also negative. There are flaws, and I would like to ask Minister also to further commit himself on this. There are open crises, for example, in Sardinia. There's one severe one in Caserta. There's another one that involves call center, especially one in the Calabria region. So this means that there's a need to build a new idea of industrial policy in the field of major industrial assets. So these iron and steel, the food and agricultural sector, and so on. But we need to create a support for small and medium-sized enterprises. SMEs have to be support in their growth towards technological innovation. We have to help them become less weak, less frail. We have to help them become stronger in order to be able to be present on the international market and withstand international competition. I very much appreciated that this government is currently taking measures, for example, the law decree on artificial intelligence, or, for example, the bill on rare earths, or the piece of legislation Transizione 5.0, which foresees investments in the field of education, or the bill on the reorganization of incentives to companies. In other words, we need to establish a strong synergy. Cisl, our trade union, is basically addressed all these issues 1 year ago. So our idea was to have a major national pact for the Italian industry, bringing together the government, companies, trade unions. And the aim was to do a couple of things. First of all, we wanted Europe to play a different role on industrial policy. We need to have a common commitment of member states in Europe with their commitment in the field of resources, technologies, know-how, in the field of sustainability, environmental sustainability, or the relaunch of production chains, and also when it comes to the support of new competencies in order to be part of the energy transition, environmental transition, with an eye on the impact of AI. And then second, again, in Europe, I really hope that this is an issue that the European Parliament addresses this topic. In Europe, we need to have a sovereign fund to support the green digital transition. We need resources. This is exactly what the US is doing. This is what China is doing. Europe has to give itself a vision, supporting decarbonization, gradual decarbonization, avoiding real problems. And then third, we need an industrial policy, a serious industrial policy in this country, and we also need an innovative role to be played by social partners. I really hope that the time has come in this country so that we leave to the past moments characterized only by fights and ideologies. I think the time has come to innovate industrial relations and to create new industrial relations based on responsibility and participation. We need to relaunch this challenge, especially in these times of change. We need a new pact. We need a new phase of regeneration of the relationship between capital and labor, between companies and workers. And the keyword, the buzzword here is participation. We need to have more participation. Over the last few years, we've already had some experiences of participation-based relationships in some major companies in our country. In these cases, we now register more well-being at work, higher satisfaction, higher pay, more productivity, and a favorable social climate. And that is why Cisl, after 75 years of the adoption of our constitution, we basically launched this challenge of really truly implementing Article 46 of our constitution. So our focus is not to change the constitution, but what we would like is to basically implement and act an article of our constitution that our founding fathers wanted and introduced to the constitution, because the aim of that article was to give people the right to collaborate in the management and in the guidance, as well as in the possible profit division within their own companies. This is something that very much relates to civilization, and this will open up a new climate within companies. If possible, there's the possibility of having management or economic or financial participation. There is a whole Italian model of our participation. We can discuss about wages, working times, of the combination between personal life and professional life, active labor policies, and so on and so forth. All of this can make the working environment more favorable to support the challenge of collaboration at European and at an international level. That is why I'm convinced that many risks lie ahead, but also at the same time major opportunities. So back to the Stellantis. We really hope that there are clear signs coming from the multinational Stellantis, because they're taking too much time, and that can be dangerous. All the Italian plants of Stellantis are suffering. Melfi, they have experiencing fear and uncertainty as Stellantis announced 5 new models, but actually it takes additional 2 years of redundancy fund for the workers. And in the first months of 2025, these contributions will come to an end, and there's a risk of losing about nearly 25,000 jobs. So the same problems are experienced in Mirafiori, in Pomigliano, and in Cassino. They sold Marelli. Now Comau. So Stellantis and its manners would rather be clear and present us a clear industrial vision, so a project on their future industrial vision for the Italian plants. They have to tell us what investments they foresee, what models they want to see, and what guarantees they give in terms of production capacity and the safeguard of jobs. And what I ask the government is to speed up on this, because it is no longer acceptable that we face this uncertainty and the silences, while the doctor is learning the ill patient is about to die. This is the risk we run. So we really need to sign the trilateral agreement to be signed that was guaranteed by the government and by Stellantis.
Ministro, abbiamo...
So, well, there were so many issues that have been introduced, Mr. Minister. This issue with Stellantis, where are we at the moment in terms of respecting the agreements or alternatives that will lead to 1 million cars produced in Italy? So what can you tell us about this? Because people are waiting for answers. So if you have something you can tell us, please do. Well, I think it is also your responsibility. If you had invited the CEO of Tavares and Stellantis to the meeting, maybe you should, or you could have understood what it means to do a social enterprise, because I think that the social sustainability of the country is extremely important. Every time I come to the meeting, I, well, recharge my batteries, so to speak. And so probably my counterpart will understand what I meant when I gave him the Constitution. And I said so also at the event for the 150th anniversary event of Fiat. And last June I told him that the Italian Republic is founded on labor. It's the article number 1 of our Constitution, not on profit. Profit is legit, but there is also another article that says that enterprises should have a social function, a social task. And I told Tavares, I told Elkan, it is Fiat that has to take its social responsibility, and Stellantis has to relaunch the car production, the automotive in Italy. And we have, well, the government did what it had to do. During our first meeting with Tavares, he asked me 2 things very clearly. In order to reach the objective of 1 million vehicles produced in Italy, he asked for 2 things. Maybe he thought we couldn't give these 2 things. First of all, the Euro 7 obstacle, the European regulation that made it impossible for enterprises to work because they had to apply some impossible technologies. They thought this was impossible, what we did. and we actually isolated Germany, and the rest of the European countries actually voted in favor, and the Euro 7 was cancelled. So Stellantis announced that they were going to continue producing some models in some sites, and then the incentives based on the production in Italy. So we had incentives for 1 billion euros. The objective was, first of all, we wanted to avoid having vehicles that actually pollute, and we have decided to avoid the fact that these vehicles could actually circulate on our roads. And then we also give incentives on electrical vehicles that we gave financial support, and we also had the goal to support Italian production, but this is a goal that we could not reach because it was Stellantis that should have increased production in our country to satisfy the needs based on the incentives. So the government did its part, the company did not. So this is the situation at the moment. And how can we solve this? We have to include everyone, trade unions, the 8 regions where the Stellantis production locations are based, and including the whole of the automotive sectors. These are the components that are extremely important, but they are the same components that are present in French and German cars and vehicles. So it is Stellantis that needs to provide an answer as soon as possible, because if they don't give an answer on the gigafactory in Termoli, the resources of the NRRP will be channeled somewhere else, because we cannot afford to lose this money. So the deadline is very short. Stellantis needs to give an answer. It needs to explain how he wants to make our country's sector increase to reach the goal set by Tavares, 1 million vehicles produced in our country. So they need to tell us where, in which factories, whereas they will invest in other factories. They need, if they want to invest in a casino, if they want to produce this second Fiat 500, the hybrid one in Mirafiori. And so it is Stellantis that needs to explain this. They have asked for resources to the government to reduce unemployment, but well, that's what they've asked for. And the development contracts can be given to those who create employment jobs. So also in terms of this gigafactory, we need to have answers. Otherwise, these NRRP resources will need to be used for something else, for other projects. So we have also the transition plan 5.0. This is the most advanced plan in Europe, because it includes digital innovation, Industry 4.0, green innovation, and education and training. We carried out long negotiations to create this plan, so that it could include green innovation, digital innovation, and education and training, and it was addressed to all production sectors, excluding the energy-consuming ones. And this is the most significant, the most complex and advanced and complete plan we have in Europe, 13 billion euros. To 2024-2025. This money can be used by Stellantis, but also by the smallest enterprises. So during my first intervention in the Parliament, I presented the project for the industrialization of our country, and I explained what the industrial policy of our country would be. And I said, faced with the Chinese challenge and the reaction of the United States with $3 billion invested in enterprises, and in order to face the protectionist measures, we are trying to respond to the Chinese. Europe said cannot be divided. We cannot afford that everyone can use state aids as they want. And we could not actually do what we did with Airbus. So we needed a European industrial policy that could invest in enterprises and jobs and safeguard enterprises. So this is what we're doing, actually. We are getting rid of many obstacles. The problem in Italy is not the cost of labor. There are multinational groups that wanted to invest millions in Italy, but they have no problems with the cost of labor. It is not a problem, it's not an issue in Italy, because in our deglobalized economy, where enterprises are located within the continents, our cost of labor cannot compare to that of Asia, but rather to that of Germany and France. These are our competitors, actually. So we do not have this problem. We have a problem in terms of energy costs, and this is the same, the pivotal issue. And I've asked the trade unions to express their opinion upon this. So we need to develop renewable energies, because this transition point 5.0 is based on this, transition. And at the same time, we need to plan the production of nuclear energy in our country. There are no other possible solutions, actually, because gas is in a transitional period, because after gas we won't have any sustainable energy resources apart from nuclear energy. So that's why we are working at creating third-generation nuclear reactors in Italy. They are actually ready. They will be ready to be installed in the different locations. So we have been working in Italy, also for foreign countries. The Italian problem is that of energy costs. In the past, the problem was the supply of critical raw materials, but this is a problem that we have solved. The Parliament has approved a new law that makes it possible to implement in Italy the rules that are foreseen by the EU regulation, using the materials needed for a green production. So we have issued a decree that makes it possible for us to open new mining sites and find these critical materials. And regions will have some rights on this, because with the law on extraction and mining that dates back to 1927, it foresaw a payment of 16 euros per hectare per year. And some enterprises were asking for the European Commission the approval of projects that can be seen as strategic for Europe on the basis of these provisions. So we issued a decree that foresees a fee on production of materials that equals 7%. As for instance, the fee on oil in the Basilicata region. So there are different Italian regions that on these royalties, on these rights, could base their budget, the regional budget. And we won't stop in innovating the country. When Giorgia Meloni asked me to present a program, I did present a program over 3 years for all the reforms that are needed in our country. And then, after these reforms, we can actually strengthen our development. We talked about strategic assets, critical raw materials, the transition 5.0. So we actually carried out so many important reforms that were much needed in the country. And we will go on with these reforms next year. In September, October, we will have the first law on small and medium enterprises that was already foreseen in project of 2011. We should have also issued an annual law on competitiveness. The Berlusconi government in 2011 had already foreseen a provision that made it compulsory for regions to make this annual law. Now we are going to make a new proposal that will make it more sustainable to support the development of SMEs and of the social enterprise, which is the real production fabric of our country. And we will complete our reforms that will then be in need of maintenance, so to speak. So over the past 2 years, no enterprises in a situation of crisis led to the bankruptcy of these enterprises. So I don't know, if trade unions can, I'm not talking to Luigi in particular, but anyway, if there has ever been an event like this. So, we were told in Parliament that there were 180 enterprises in critical situations. What was being done? My first reform was a reform for transparency on the website. On the website of the ministry, you'll see the monitoring tables, the crisis tables. I think they are 32 now. The monitoring tables that actually come before the crisis table, and how they work and how they conclude their work. And we always had positive conclusions. We have different cases, Ipuremea, Ivasida, Fosse Battipaglia. I'm quoting cases that are actually relevant, because we do believe it is necessary to protect the production sites in our country. And if the production activity is no longer competitive, we need to find different industrial solutions. And so in Basel we will have the production of commercial wagons of the MSC group. Fosse Battipaglia, probably the production will change from the optical fiber. We will not produce home appliances anymore. So we want to safeguard these production sites, but changing them into something that is more competitive. We have had a 13 years of redundancy funds.
E abbiamo assegnato.
And now we have a multinational group that will intervene, and then I will be able to give you some news. Can't you tell us now? No, I can't. So we have actually relaunched this sector in Italy. So we did everything we could, even though the press was against us. They didn't want us to do anything. This is quite almost criminal, so to speak.
Se non fossimo intervenuti dopo 4 giorni, c'erano 4 giorni di approvvigionamento, poi sarebbe dovuto chiudere l'ultimo altoforno.
We still had 4 days of time. I had to call the authorities in Taranto to understand why there were ships that were taking the raw materials away. Because after 4 days we didn't have the raw material necessary for the production of the factory in Taranto. After 6 months, we have relaunched the production. We had maintenance. There is already the procurement that is now having been launched. Piombino, 9 years of redundancy funds. 2 international partners have intervened. We are working on this agreement. So, okay, we can have 2 productive investments. We are working on the different sectors. After a discussion and negotiations with the social parties, because we think that cohesion is fundamental in our country. Let's look at what happens in other European countries, in the past few months. In the past, Italy had high labor costs. Italy was marked by continuous strikes. And now if I look at other European countries, I can say there is no country that gives more social cohesion, more trustworthiness. It's Italy. If we compare our country with with other European competitors, so there is more continuity, there is more solidity, because the situation, unluckily, is not the same in other countries. I don't have any problems in comparing our countries with Germany, and the situation is, I don't know, for instance, whom the Minister for Economy will be in France, because they have a coalition government, but we don't understand their program. So the government that guarantees more continuity is Italy. At international level, among all the big Western countries.
In Giappone si vedrà tra poco, grande punto interrogativo.
A big question mark for Japan, for the United States. In Great Britain, they had 4 governments in like 3 years, and now we have the new Labour government. So this is what we are working at. I think we can actually reach significant objectives. We are working with the Industrial Association Confindustria on other important issues that go beyond the cost of energy, which is a structural problem. That is to say, the cost of housing, because enterprises would like to hire workers, but those who would be willing to work don't have enough money to afford a house. So together with the Ministers of Economy, Infrastructure and Labour, together with the Confindustria, as well as with the trade unions, we are working on this housing plan. A housing plan for the industry. a housing plan that is structural, that will make it possible for enterprises, as it happened in the past, to create the houses needed by the workers, using also state-owned areas, because the 23 provinces where housing is lacking, where the demand for labor forces is very forte, there are a lot of areas, state-owned areas, that are not used at the moment. So a structural plan that will make it possible for these enterprises to create these houses, and a transitional plan that will have a value for the first 3 years to create, so to speak, first housing program for newly hired young people. So we will work on this, and this is a very important target for us. Stellantis is the only Italian producer, but this is not going to be enough. So this is what we have been working at, because we want Italy to become a country that produces green technology. This is what we want. And digital technology. In the first semester of this year, we invested over 9 billion in euros, over 5 billion in Catania, and then again in other regions like Piedmont in the first semester only. So we are the country that produces digital microchips in Europe. Green technology. In the agreements with China, we foresee a partnership on green technology and energy. After Giorgia Meloni's mission to China and the agreement with China, we have already announced 4 partnerships in the fields of wind and solar energy, because we wanted to produce with the most advanced technology for the Mediterranean and the European market. In the meantime, we are developing other production sites in Catania, because I issued a law with the quality criteria for certain technologies. So we are going to finance specifically the high-performing technology which is produced in Catania, in Trisania.
Questa è politica industriale. Mobilità
electric mobility. We actually signed 4 memorandum with 4 important automotive factories in China that could invest in Italy. A task force will go to China to meet the representatives of these industries, but we do know that a single industry cannot provide Italy with all the models that we need, that our citizens, our consumers need. A single industry cannot do more than we hope to do with 1 million vehicles. To support the supply chain, we need to have at least another producer. So we want to have at least 1.5 million vehicles in our country. So we need another producer. And the guarantee of what we are doing is our transparency. When we have technical meetings with the Chinese producers, so we always have a representative of ANFIA, and with our meetings with institutional in partners and in China, there was always a representative of ANFIA. So we work for you to have products that have at least a 40% component that comes from Italy. And so this is what foreseen in Italy according to the European rules on safety.
Actually, in no documents there was the term artificial intelligence, although this is very much debated in the papers. It's quite the opposite. In all the documents I signed, we basically stated that all the sensitive parts are made or produced in our country, regulated by Italian and EU laws. I believe that over the next 40 months we will complete the project for the production rebirth of Italy, so that Italy becomes a great international lab in whose strength is social cohesion. The fact that there are companies like your companies that are in charge of environmental production and social sustainability is very important. And I think that this is something that has to be done also by the major companies investing in our country. Thank you. Okay, I would like to thank very much Minister Urso. I would like to thank the President of ISTAT, the President of Compagnia, delle Opere, the President of Salone del Mobile, and the Secretary General of Cisl for this debate. You gave us interesting food for thoughts, and many commitments have been made. We're here to support these commitments and to check them. Thank you very much.
Civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Avere quello che ti serve quando ti serve. Con EasyBank, la banca digitale di Intesa San Paolo.
Per lavoro non mi separo mai dal mio telefono, tranne quando devo prepararmi per una trasmissione importante. E quando guido. In macchina occhi fissi sulla strada e non sul telefono. Perché la strada è il filo che ci lega a ciò che amiamo. Buongiorno a tutti, siete pronti per una diretta? Io sì, e restiamo qui.
Se stai cercando vicinanza, solidità, trasparenza, sono qui, il Medio Credito Centrale, una banca a capitale pubblico, una banca per le imprese che offre finanziamenti e gestisce agevolazioni. Qui è il posto per te. Medio Credito Centrale, qui l'impresa ha più valore.
Vi imploro, con umiltà e con fiducia, permettete a Cristo di parlare all'uomo.
Don Gius aveva capito il problema che avevo. Se la tua vocazione è vero, il tuo lavoro verrà fuori anche dai sassi.
Di comunicare la fede agli altri, ma veramente insieme a loro riscoprire che cos'è la fede, che cos'è la fede per me. Portare Cristo agli altri, comunicarlo agli altri è l'unico modo che abbiamo per conoscerlo veramente.
L'Ittere Communionis aiuta a comunicare all'esterno la ricchezza di vita, di giudizi, di tentativi, di opere che nascono dalle persone e dalle comunità. L'Ittere Communionis è proprio la vita del movimento. Scrivete all'Ittere Communionis le vostre esperienze, ci fate bene,